Hello everyone, welcome back to League of Legends DFS Esports Breakdown for August the 5th slate. First glance, not the greatest slate, but it is what it is. We'll better than yesterday, and that's all we can ask for. So we'll quickly recap yesterday and then get started on tomorrow as we do. So yesterday was obviously a pretty weird one. It was one where I ended up just not doing anything the entire night. It was a slate I was not interested in at all. Obviously, short video explained all that stuff as well. So nothing too crazy. Obviously, ended up being a little bit interesting. EDG did get the clean 2-0 over WE, kind of as anticipated, but RA ended up getting the upset over LNG. Honestly, in hindsight, I do wish I had looked at this one a little bit more, not just because of the result, but I do think I did kind of have a feeling where, as much as I do like to shit on RA, they actually do get some advantages, and I just think this is probably a lesson learned for myself, at least, as well. At the end of the day, I didn't play the slate, so it's not like I lost money on it. However, I do think if we did spend some time, there was definitely a chance I could have came to the conclusion of going with RA. You know, I did kind of shit on them yesterday, and I did say I do think RA is the worst team in the league, and I did think that the kind of difference makers that I wish I had thought about and noticed was, one, the main problems RA have is that iBoy and Leon get caught out significantly often, and that causes problems for the team, obviously. You cannot win team fights and crucial objective fights in this game when you're 4v5, and especially without your AD carry, and especially without your jungler. Those are arguably the two most important people when it comes down to team fighting, these 5v5 fights. The thing is, I don't think LNG are that apt to get the picks and be proactive. I think LNG, part of their problem is they are just not proactive and don't pull the trigger and don't do anything often. They're very much in an LCK style like that. And I do think overall, when this is something I talk about often when it comes down to these teams and stuff, is styles. I often compare it to MMA and how styles make fights, and I do think that it is something that was worth noting here. I do think these teams play a similar style, and I don't think what what LNG does well would have hampered RA that much. I don't think LNG is proactive enough to catch out RA when RA make these mistakes that they make. And I also think RA are actually somewhat decent at getting these gold leads and doing macro things well. They just bottle it pretty much quite often, and I don't think that's what LNG does well. So obviously in hindsight, it's obviously easy to say, oh, RA had the upset, it is what it is. I'll take the loss on the record and all that stuff. I'm not doing anything else, but it's just something maybe in hindsight that we learn from and try to think about every game as if look beyond just the names and try to think about these games, see avenues, look at the games in total, and then if your conclusion is you just take the favorite, then just take the favorite. So that's something we'd take a note from and move on. Over in the LCK, things kind of went as expected. KT got the 2-1 over Bro. That was the exact scoreline I believe I had given out. But we didn't really look at that bet. I don't think the numbers were there. I do think Bro were definitely in this series. It was definitely pretty close. And at the end of the day, I think I did recommend looking at Fred at Brion plus 1.5. I believe at plus 100, so plus 105. So that was definitely a good idea and a good thought process. So overall, although things didn't go our way yesterday, I didn't lose money on it. And overall, I don't think the reads on the games and stuff are bad at the moment either. So we can take that forward and move in confidently, I believe. We'll go ahead and get started looking at these lineups. So LGD are back. They are going back with their other kind of more youngster-oriented lineup. They are bringing back Quay, Hai Chao, and Assam. I talked about this last time. I do believe this is the better lineup that the LGD team can put out. I'm not that big of a fan of Yeji and Eric. I would prefer Shadow over Quay. However, I do believe Quay speaks the language. I believe Shadow, I can't imagine he speaks much Mandarin. I do believe he's a European player, as far as I remember. Yeah, he's Italian, it says here. So, yeah, memory serves. They are going with the full Chinese roster. So I believe I would assume that they are just speaking Mandarin. And maybe is a little bit better to communicate with Quay. I believe maybe Shadow is picking up some Mandarin, but I can't imagine it's to the same level as obviously somebody like Quay. I think that's probably the factor that goes into this. Although I do think individually Shadow has been the better player. Communication obviously is a gigantic part of it. As far as what to expect from this one, I just realized I never pulled up the odds from these. But I find it very hard to get anything other than a TES 2-0 here. Overall, TES are obviously they're the minus 2,000 here. I find this pretty interesting. I really do. I think minus 2,000 obviously is a little crazy, as most of these esports odds are. They tend to heavily go in favor of these favorites. I do think it is like a tad bit closer, but at best, I'm recommending it be a minus 500 as opposed to a minus 2,000. So I do think the sentiment is still the same. I do think top esports get this job done, get the 2-0 here, and nothing too crazy. So as far as the numbers go and the slate overview, I wish I brought this up at the beginning of the slate. I need to remember to do that. So as we look at this slate as a whole, it's actually a pretty close and kind of dense slate when it comes to expected kills and the average outcome of games. I'm going to wait for a little bit of more sample before we talk about it, but I do believe the patch that the LPL is playing on, 12.14, they are removing some of the durability updates, like kind of slowly peeling them back a little bit. So I believe with the less levels of enchanters, we should be seeing some more engaged supports, which means more fights, more fantasy points. I do believe things are going to be a little bit skewed towards the LPL as we continue and look forward through these through the patches. I believe as LPL are playing on 12.14, I think that will be a difference maker here. However, statistically speaking, at the moment, nothing too crazy separating these teams. Dom1 Genji is the lowest at about 22, DRX Nongshim at about 23, LGD TES is at about 24, and then BLG OMG is about 25. So 22, 23, 24, 25 is the expected total of kills in these series. So pretty close. One kill difference between these, definitely within the margins of error. So overall, I think the slate is pretty open. I do expect top esports to be pretty heavily owned. However, I think this is going to be one of the scenarios which we'll look at some of the LGD losses that they've had previously, but I believe this could be one where it's just too one-sided to be a part of, and I think there's some other spots I would prefer to get to. So overall, I do think top esports get the job done 2-0. I definitely like them as like a secondary stack. I don't know how much they get there as a full 4-man stack, but I definitely think they're 2-0. Very high scoring, or very decently scoring. They're a solid floor, obviously. We look over to the next series, BLG versus OMG. So this is a pretty exciting game. Not one we would have been expecting to say about a week and a half ago, but obviously BLG's had a slight resurgence in their past couple of matches. Since they brought the full roster back, they obviously beat IG. I don't think their roster was back here against this in that one, so I wonder if the match history will show us. Hopefully it's updated. Nope. So 723s when they had their old roster back. Yeah, my memory is failing me on this one, but I believe it's just been 2 or maybe 3 series that they've had their roster back now. They obviously 2-0'd FPX last time out. Oh, this is where was I? Where was I looking? I was in the wrong area. So yeah, they 2-0'd FPX last time out with their new roster, and then they lost to V5 with the new roster. So that makes sense. So they were coming up off of the 2-0 FPX win, which is obviously looking a little bit less impressive now with how FPX seems to be crumbling a tiny bit. And then they come in and lose to V5, not a big deal. So overall, I'm honestly a tad bit surprised with how close these odds are. I do think OMG is the better team, and I believe they should be a little bit more favored here. I do not really see how how BLG is getting this much love here. I feel like OMG has kind of cemented themselves as a relatively strong playoff contender. I don't mean to like win the playoffs. I just mean to probably secure one of these playoff spots here. Obviously, BLG are still in the hunt here, so these are two teams playing for playoff spots. Obviously, OMG are in a much better spot. They are 7-7 already. Usually, the magic number to get into playoffs is 9, so they just need a couple more wins and they're in. I just feel like OMG is a good bit better, and I'm honestly pretty surprised that these odds are this close. I do think OMG get the job done here. I've been pretty enamored with how they've been drafting and playing lately. Obviously, Shanji's emerged as an insane talent. He's living up to the hype that we had expected from him. Cream has kind of hit or miss. Aki, pretty similar, hit or miss. Abel's been pretty consistent, and then obviously Cold here, I think, has been relatively consistent as well. So it does heavily depend on the jungle and mid lane kind of variance here. However, I just feel like watching Weiwei last time out, he just seemed incredibly lost. I think they got a little bit fortunate playing against IG, who's like pretty bad, all things considered. I just am not buying into this BLG team anymore. I am pretty surprised that we have like a playoff team versus what I think is a pretty low-end team at -140. I just feel like OMG should be a little bit better favored here, and I like going to OMG a good bit here. This is the expected highest scoring matchup of the day, and it's going to be one I'm going to be pretty heavy on. I like OMG a lot here, and I'm pretty surprised by these odds. Then over in the LCK, we have a couple decently sized favorites. DRX at -350 over Nongshim, and then Genji -350 over Dom1. Probably at first glance, you guys may be a little bit shocked by the Genji Dom1 odds, maybe depending on how in tune I guess you are, but Dom1 have looked really, really poor as of late. They swapped out their support. Even last game there was no Kellen, I believe it was Bible. He didn't look particularly bad, however the whole team just looks bad overall, so it's really hard to kind of look at the DRX Dom1 here and like too much. I think this is fair, and I like Genji a good bit here. The odds are a little bit not the best. Like obviously when we're looking at two relatively good teams, like obviously Genji I think are very good, probably like bordering on like world's favorite good, like elite to Genji, and then Dom1 who is still Dom1, like it's still Canyon and Showmaker and Nuggery. Obviously Duck Dom had his moments. We don't even know who's playing for them in support. But I just think the fact that we do have them swapping out supports, just looking for any spark, is definitely concerning. I'm going to be riding with Genji here. I don't know how they're priced on DK, but I just think with how great they've been playing, they look like complete world beaters at the moment, and Dom1 are looking a little silly. I could definitely see a pretty good matchup here for Genji. DRX Nongshim. This one is actually pretty intriguing to me. So Nongshim has had kind of like a love-hate relationship with us. They lost to Frederick Brion last time out, and after they beat Liv Sandbox. Then obviously Liv Sandbox, I believe, turned around and beat DRX. That was a matchup lately, yeah. Liv Sandbox beat DRX, so obviously a little bit of MMA math there. Nongshim should beat DRX because Nongshim beat LSB and LSB beat DRX. Obviously, I am joking there, but kind of partially. I don't want to extract too much from a single game sample size. That's why we've been on Liv Sandbox so heavily in their last two matchups, because they were really good before they lost this one series to Nongshim. So I don't want to give Nongshim a bunch of credit here because they beat Liv Sandbox once here. However, they have been playing a little bit better as of late. Obviously, they got swept by Bro last time out. Obviously, we know Bro has been playing a lot better as of late. That's not quite as disappointing as it may look. They got the win over Nongshim, they got the win over Live Sandbox. They had a close series with KT. They got swept by Damwon, Genji, and then obviously lost to Bro again earlier. But we know Bro's, again, been on that rise since then. So overall, I think this is actually a relatively decent middling level team. I'm probably not going to be ending up taking the shot on Nongshim here. Maybe a little bit. Again, I'd say this most of the time. I always am pretty transparent and stuff with you guys. I've been building 3 lineups a night. That's usually what I've been doing. I've found keeping the amount of lineups I make down has been better for me. I might have one Nongshim lineup just because, and mainly I'm not going to have any DRX. Mainly, I just think the variance is going to be pretty high in this one. We've seen, I think, enough from Nongshim as of late that they've been playing okay enough, and I think DRX has been pretty hit or miss. Obviously, they've kind of scraped by. They've won a couple series over Damwon and Fred at Brion. Pretty crazy results there. Swept by Genji, not a big deal. Lost to LSB again. I don't think that's that big of a deal. Like, again, I do think these are 2 pretty middling teams. I just think overall, the odds that we're getting here at minus 350 DRX just seems a little bit too steep in my opinion. I do think DRX is the better team. They should probably get this job done. Probably 2-1, maybe 2-0. However, I just think that Nongshim as a team play a pretty high variance style. I think DRX play a relatively decent variance level style as well. Like, we see a lot of questionable decisions from DRX as well. I think the avenues that are open that led to Nongshim taking the series over LSB can be applied to this one as well. Again, when we're kind of playing this and expecting, and it's more of a variance play, I don't necessarily see a specific avenue like how some other times where we see, I don't know, like when we look back at these two Damwon fades, we can definitively look at these and say KT and Live Sandbox are pretty decent, like on the upper middle level of the league, and Damwon have been really, really shaky as of late. Damwon should just objectively not have been as big of a favorites against these 2 teams as they were. We can definitively look at those and say that with certainty. When we're looking at something like DRX and Nongshim, we look at this series, there's nothing like that. We can't look at this and say Nongshim has been objectively better or DRX has been playing objectively really bad. I just think that the style that these 2 teams have can lead to surprises, and for that reason, I'm not willing to shut the door on this series from the underdog's perspective of Nongshim. And that's going to kind of wrap it up here. I think Genji probably get the job done 2-0. I do think this is going to be a pretty heavily one-sided game for Genji, and I think although people within the sphere are definitely realizing that Damwon are not playing well, I don't think that's going to stop Genji from trying to style and really put a beating on Damwon. They're still former world champion Damwon. It's still Nuguri, Showmaker, Canyon. Obviously, the bottom lane has changed since then, but it's still the world champion Damwon. It's still the world recognized team Damwon. Genji want to put a stamp on this one, and I think really, really solidify that they are that they are the world's threats. I think this is going to be a pretty heavily one-sided game for Genji. I expect them to pull out a lot of stops here and really put the hammer down on Genji in this one, or on Damwon in this one. So I'm definitely willing to lock and load a good bit of Genji. Again, Top Esports is a team I'm not loving a lot of from a DK standpoint. I do think they are pretty safe. However, I don't see a ton of upside. I do think this is going to be a very one-sided game. It could be pretty interesting. We'll look at some of the LGD losses maybe here in a little bit, but I don't love that much. I just think they're probably going to be pretty overpriced. Yeah, like we look and see Top Esports are the most expensive in everything. I'd personally rather try to get to Genji and OMG personally. I could definitely see the upside there a little bit more when it comes down to the DK scoring. So I'm personally, it's fine if you want to get to top esports again, safe, makes sense, all that stuff. We'll put them into the numbers, but overall, I'm preferring Gen G and OMG. And obviously, we talked about OMG not too long ago. The concern here is that we actually have been seeing, I think, the blue side, red side splits for OMG have been really, really crazy. So I guess they're kind of more neutral now, but OMG 7-5 on blue, BLG 7-4 on blue, and over on red, OMG 3-4, BLG 2-6. So BLG 7-4 on blue, 2-6 on red. BLG have been pretty pronounced as a blue side team, and they are getting the blue side selection here. Granted that it is majority with the other lineup, they are going back to obviously Weiwei, Icon, Doggo. They still have Bin and Crisp, of course, but overall, most of the lineup is different, so I don't know how much stock you want to put into those. But I'm liking Gen G. I'm liking OMG. I don't like that they're on the bad sides. That does slightly worry me. That could probably make this a 3-game series in a couple of these spots. However, I like OMG a good bit here. I like Gen G to really put his stomping on to Dom 1 here. And as my underdog flyer, I don't love it. I'm not giving this out as a super confident idea, but I do think DRX and Nongshim can be a little bit closer. I do think we've seen some good level of variance from DRX and Nongshim, obviously. I think when we look at DRX, like we'd have to go pretty far back, but they have been a little shaky in the past. Like I think when they started out this year, they were pretty shaky. They barely took these games over like Hanwha. I don't know. It's a little bit exaggerated, but they are 7-7. They're pretty neutral. They've lost twice to Gen G, T1, and Dom and Live Sandbox. So they've been relatively stable at beating these lower end teams. So there is definitely hesitancy here, but it's like, do I really want to go with the 4 favorites here? Probably not. Do I think this one is a little bit closer than the odds suggest? Maybe a little bit. And I'm fine giving this one out as the underdog pick here, but again, I don't love it. I definitely want to clarify that. I don't see anything particularly egregious in this one. I just think this is one that could be a little bit closer, and I'm willing to buy into, and it's a little bit more of a lottery ticket style hope that something goes our way as opposed to having an edge, I think, in something. Yeah, I think overall that's going to do it. So we'll go ahead and look at the players and then go ahead and get out of here. 12, 12, 12, 13, and 12.14. Obviously, LPL are now on. For the teams, Gen G, we'll put NS in there. Hopefully that brings up Nongshim. OMG, and then, of course, Top Esports. So we'll go ahead and hopefully this brings up all the teams we were looking for. All right, it does. Overall, we'll look at the groupings as we typically do. Don't expect Jerry or Sylvie to be playing. Maybe Snowflower. I believe Snowflower has been playing for Nongshim here. So we will look at that. Sorry, 1 second. I had to deal with something. We're looking at the Nongshim roster here. Believe, yeah, they've been playing with Snowflower. It's been kind of a mix, although I would anticipate they go back to Snowflower. I'm trying to see. 723. 28-31. See, I hate how the match history does not show up here, everything. So Fredit Brion and then LSB. Let's see. Whoops, this is the LPL. Match history. We'll look for Ghost. So they had Snowflower against Fredit Brion. They had Snowflower against all of LSB. So it looks like they are just committed to Snowflower. So we can use his numbers pretty good. Top of the slate. I actually wish I didn't close that because I wanted to make sure that they were playing with Dread, but I believe they are. Yeah, I mean, Mark is up there, Lehens is up there, Shanji top laner above 70%. That's pretty incredible. I do think if you are going to OMG, he's going to be pretty insanely owned as the top laner. His numbers are completely insane compared to everyone else's. We could see all the way down here, Canna at 60, Wayward at 45, Doran at 54. Shanji's numbers blow everybody's completely out of the water. I would expect him to be very popular. And I think he's captainable even. That would probably dictate you. It doesn't feel great because Doran and Wayward's numbers are not that great, so don't know if that's the direction you'd particularly want to go, but it's possible. Overall groupings not too bad. BDD, Ghost, and Dread combined with Snowflower are all very high up, above 68% or so. For OMG, obviously Shanji, Abel, Cream and Cold, Aki's at 56. He would probably be the one I typically leave off. I definitely like the numbers for everyone else. Cream being 66% minimum is pretty good. I do like Gen G, but they are pretty heavily dictated towards bottom lane of Lehens and Ruler, both being above 70. Meanwhile, Chovy, Peanut are down here above near the 60s range. I do think mixing them in would make a lot of sense. I'm definitely fine with that. But you know, their numbers are just not the greatest, that's for sure. For top esports, obviously Mark's pretty good. Jackie Love and Knight are near 70. Tion and Wayward are both pretty low, so not the greatest jungler numbers. We see Peanut, Tion all the way down here. Aki, Peanut, Tion, and Aki are all down here. Dread's numbers are the only respectable ones at about 68%. But odds are, if you're playing these underdogs, I don't know how much you want to get to somebody like Dread for Nongshim, but you know, if you are going with that Nongshim stack, I wouldn't be opposed to going that direction. So overall, yeah, I think that breaks it down. Top laner, pretty straightforward. Shanji, I think there's a lot of options. These jungler numbers are not the best, so probably not a great double jungle. Slate, if you do want to go with those favorites. So yeah, overall, I think this is actually going to be a pretty exciting game. Or slate. I am pretty excited to watch these ones, specifically DRX Nongshim. I'm going to probably have a little bit of exposure to Nongshim again. I might end up just trying to fade top esports and get a little bit and try to get, I don't know, somewhat unique that way, but who knows. And then Gen G and OMG are my two favorite spots. I absolutely love going that direction. So yeah, I think that'll be it for me tonight. I will see you guys all again tomorrow, hopefully for another slate. I believe it is I don't know, it'll be Friday tomorrow, so who knows. I don't know if we'll look real quick, but you guys know, if it's a 2-gamer, then most likely no video. Typically take the night off for that. Typically advise taking the night off of these esport 2-gamers altogether anyway. So I'll be back for Call of Duty tomorrow if you guys are there for that. Appreciate that, but maybe I'll see you guys tomorrow, maybe not, I'm not sure, but yeah, thank you guys for tuning in.